Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of Talking Acquisition. This is the weekly high-energy, informative, and slightly opinionated view on all things acquisition, procurement, and government contracting related. This is the place where the contracting and acquisition communities join our industry partners to connect, talk, listen, and learn from each other. My name is William Randolph, and I am your host, and I'd like to introduce my co-host, my colleague, my partner, my dear friend, Soraya Carrera. Hello, Soraya. How you doing?
Hey, Will. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Hey, hanging in there, ready for
Excellent.
the holidays, all excited about our podcast and all the fun stuff. But I have to ask you, why do you say slightly opinionated? I think we're pretty opinionated.
I just try to give myself a little leeway, just a little leeway. Build flexibility in, you know?
Yeah, just teasing you, just teasing you. You're all good, all good.
So
All right.
before we get going, it's disclosure time.
Okay, ready?
Yes.
All right, here we go. Ta-da-da-dum. Drum roll, please. Okay, now our podcast shares information and views on a variety of topics that impact the federal acquisition community. Our goal is to provide thought leadership and perspective, not to criticize, judge, or render political opinions, although a few might slip out. We provide this free service because we are former federal acquisition professionals and leaders. We believe that the creativity, innovation, and effectiveness of our community is unleashed when we share knowledge, information, and learning. We hope you enjoy our podcast, and we welcome the views and comments of our colleagues across the private and public sectors. So, Will, what are we going to talk about this week?
So, Soraya, I've been, over the weekend, I've been thinking about, kind of wrapping up one year, and we're getting close to the end of the calendar year. So you start thinking about next. And what came to mind for me is there a message or some messaging, some insights that we could share with our industry partners, specifically our small business industry partners, as they start thinking about the future, kind of the next calendar year. So I'd like to just, from a perspective of our experiences and how we're, have businesses of our own, what are some things that industry, particularly small businesses, should be thinking about as they venture into and start preparing for calendar year 22?
So that's a great topic, by the way. And I'm always happy to share my little pearls of wisdom. Not that I necessarily follow all my own pearls of wisdom, but that's a whole nother topic, right? That's human nature. But so let me lead into what I'm going to say. First, by saying I was really excited when I saw that the president signed the executive order on customer experience.
Yeah.
I've been talking about the experience of the customer because I use more words than everybody else. Everybody shortened it to customer experience. Soraya has been talking about the experience of the customer for years and years and years. In fact, even before I became CPO, I was always talking about how you make your customer feel. And it's really funny because in government, there are a lot of people that don't like the word customer, especially like in our business. I got a lot of pushback, and I had to help people understand that the reason I use the word customer is because I think of service. As soon as I say the word customer, I think of service. And by the way, I believe that we are an ecosystem of customers and suppliers. We really are. In whatever line of work we're in, there's always a supplier and a customer. That's the interactions that we have. So the example that I always gave to my employees was, you are my customer. When you come to me for anything, guidance, mentoring, to ask me a question, whatever, I look at you as a customer and I have to provide a service. And I want to give you a good experience when you come and talk to me.
Yep.
Even if the answer is not the one that you seek, I still want you to have a good experience, because it's not the answer that I give you, it's how I make you feel that's going to draw you back to me. So anyway, so to tie it back to what you're saying, this is about the experience you give a customer. But I also want to talk about the lineage of customers that we deal with, or the chain of customers, because all too often people think that person, that ultimate taxpayer is the only customer. No, you have a chain. Before the taxpayer, you have, in our case, we have our program officials. We have a lot of our counterparts, by the way, like the CFO, the CIO, et cetera, that are part of the team. But you have your program manager, who is ultimately serving the end user who is ultimately serving the taxpayer. So
Right.
when people say to me, your customer is the taxpayer, because I used to get this all the time, oh, your customer is the taxpayer. Well, taxpayer don't see me. Taxpayer sees the end user of the product or service that I'm buying, who he sees is, or he or she sees as the program manager, who then sees me. So I always think of the customer in that line of succession.
Yeah, I
And
love it.
what kind of experiences do we give each? So what are some of the tidbits that I would say? Well, how about be a part of the solution and not part of the problem? And by that, what I mean is you're not going to win everything, and you're not going to always get your way. Help us help you. When companies used to come to see me, I used to say, this is your meeting. And a couple of them would get this blank stare, like, what the hell I was hoping you'd tell me something. I'm not writing any checks here, man. You asked to meet with me. What are you selling me? Why do you want me to listen to you? And I say that very sincerely, that if you walk into that room and you're expecting the government to give you all the answers, you just lost half the battle.
Yeah.
You have to bring something to the table. What are you selling? Why are you there? Why do you want them to listen to you? And that ties, to one of my pet peeves. You can't be all things to all people. I know you're going to talk about that a little bit. You have to have something to sell. And you better know the business of that agency when you go to talk to them.
Yep.
Talk to them in terms where they'll understand you and appreciate you and see you as bringing them a solution, or at least trying to bring a solution, right? Because if not, you just become a part of the problem. You become of the many gazillion people that are banging on the door, not allowing me to breathe or think, and stopping me from really doing what I need to do. And that sounds a little negative, but that's a very true statement. And I try to advise small businesses on that, especially large businesses get this, but even small businesses, the ones that are starting out, I always try to tell them, watch the PowerPoints, man.
Yeah.
Don't use your half hour, you get 15 minutes to half an hour, maybe 45 minutes if the person's real generous. Don't waste it on PowerPoints.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, you tapped into one of my largest pet peeves when we used to do when I was back in government, taking meetings, and I always called it, don't assign me homework. Don't come into the room. Don't come in the room and say, okay, what do you have, to give to me? I was like, whoa, that's not how this works. We're looking for capability. We're trying to understand the marketplace. Okay, we're trying to understand what the differentiator, a given company has a differentiator in the space. So, but the last thing that I think, like you say, spending your 15 minutes or spending your 30 minutes, is the first thing is, okay, what do you have? What's your list of stuff? You just assigned me homework. Now I've got to go drop the things that I'm doing to try to find opportunities for you. So my first is simply don't assign homework. I think the second one for me is you tapped into it a little bit, is when you are designing solutions or talking about capability, make sure you have an understanding of the environment of the organization, not so much from the knowledge of it, but that as you build solutions, that those solutions can live in the environment that you are seeking to birth them in. I have seen so many times companies come in and say, oh, we want to do this. And this is well before much of the technology adoption that we have today. People are like, oh, we want to do this and take this out and kill this system and add this. That's like, that's not executable in the environment today. It's great value, it's great paper value that I often called it paper value. It's like, okay, on paper, that sounds amazing. But you're asking us to kill off a system that we've invested tens of millions of dollars in, likely,
right?
Or a wish that this thing might work in the future. It's like, that's a risk profile that we'll never entertain, right. Literally never entertain. So I'm a big believer in understanding the environment, not only for the knowledge of the environment, but so that any solution that you build, it can actually live, in the environment that is birthed.
Yeah, and I would say that, with the exception of certain agencies, that shall remain nameless because they have to be, everybody's got a website and everybody's got a ton of information out there. In fact, I think in a lot of the government websites anymore, it's very popular. I know that we used to do it at DHS, how to do business with, right? And it
Yep.
talks to you about, the agency and the different missions and the different components. And you can go here and you can learn a lot about an agency studying their websites. Also, you don't have to go too far. Everything's out there in the news, right? So everybody knows like what some of the big challenges are at most of the federal agencies. And if you're reading the president's management agenda, I mean, you got to do that homework to really understand who you're going to go talk to and understand the environment and the parameters under which they're operating. And if you're bringing a good, innovative idea, tie that idea to a solution that they need, right? Don't just say, I built the latest shiny object.
Right.
Yeah, thank you. Right. I can't do anything with that. But if you come to me, especially when you're talking to people like us, right? The management side of the house, you come to us and you say, look, I've got this AI solution that we know will yield great information for TSA because it will tell them about the people that are coming through the airport and what they're experiencing, whatever the topic is, but tie it back to that mission of that organization that you're visiting. Because if you're not doing that, you're gonna feel at the end of that meeting that you wasted your time, depending on the person that you're talking to. And that person's going to feel like, okay, I got you your 15 minutes. Thank you. Goodbye. You want that person to be interested in talking to
Right.
you. You want that person to send you to another person potentially, or at a minimum, give you some ideas. One of the things that I always try to do with large and small businesses, I always try to point them in a direction, right? When they would come and talk to me, I go, well, I think that's probably more suited for this agency or that agency, or hey, here's the people that you want to talk to within our agency. You want to try to get an audience with these folks, or I might even tell them to go look at something on our webpage or in FedBizOps. I'd say, look, I know that these things exist, but you got to bring it back to me. If you just say to me, what you got for me lately? I'll never forget. I went to one meeting and I had a guy. He actually said this. He said, "You gonna write me a check?" And you know me, I'm like subtle and shy.
Yes, I do.
And I went, why would I write you a check if I could write one for myself? He looked at me like I was nuts. And I said, dude, it doesn't work this way. The federal government isn't just handing out money. Okay. That's just like not the way it works. The federal government is buying the purchasing side. In grants, we hand out money for public good.
Sure.
Do
Yeah.
something of benefit for the public.
Right.
But in contracting, we're actually buying things we need. We don't just write a check. We go, oh, look, new contract. Let me write a big. It doesn't work that way.
Doesn't
Okay.
work that way.
So come at me with a rational product or service that ties to the mission, and then tell me how that benefits me. Right. That's how you're going to get my attention. And I always tell people, watch it with the PowerPoints. It's nice to have a little leave behind, like a one pager or whatever, but careful when you write those elaborate PowerPoints and capabilities. I already know you're going to tell me you're great and wonderful, aren't you? Isn't that what?
Right.
Well, okay. Like I've told companies a million times, if that PowerPoint says that you stink, I'll probably give you a contract because I do think.
That's when you write the check, right? That's when
that's when I'll write the check because I'll be like impressed, right? Because it's like a resume. You're not going to put on your resume, yeah, I really screwed up this project, hire me. No. And that's what capability statements are. Now, a nice, 1 or 2 page document to refresh my memory of who you are, what you do, and maybe some of your customers, identifying like some of the projects or customers. That's always a nice to have, and it's a nice to leave behind or to send in advance.
Right.
To kind of orient you to who this company is.
Don't waste your time on that. Don't waste your time in the room on that.
When you're in that room, don't read me your PowerPoint, because that, in fact, when you start reading the PowerPoint, I never do this. I whip out the phone. Because you're gonna read me the PowerPoint. I know how to read. No, don't read. Talk to me. Have a conversation. You get that half hour, use it wisely. The other thing that I would say to industry is don't be afraid to be honest with the government if you're concerned about something. So I think a lot about RFIs, because we put out a lot of RFIs in government, and I know it can be very frustrating for industry. And I've often tried to advise the people that worked for me, when you put these RFIs out, have a meaning, have a purpose behind it, right? Tell industry what you're looking for. Ask them questions. Don't just toss out a statement of work and say, oh, those comments, oh. No, you're going to get a thousand comments, most of which are going to be duplicative, and they might not even tell you anything. First, if you're going to put out something in draft, C, L, and M. C, L, and M. In fact, if you forget C and give them L and M, they're probably going to be even happier.
Yep.
Because industry wants to understand how you're going to evaluate this thing. That's what's going to tell them whether or not they want to play. But C, L, and M, everything else, gravy. But if you don't give those three together, you're probably not going to get the best feedback in the world. The best feedback comes from C, L, and M. I've heard that repeatedly from industry. Even just the other day, I was talking to one of my customers, and he actually looked, they put out L and M. I was so happy, yay! Because it really gives them perspective, and it tells them whether or not this is something they want to pursue. So C, L, and M. But on the RFI itself, ask specific questions. Tell industry what you're looking for. I want to know if you're small. I want to know if you're interested in this thing. I want to know if this thing even makes any damn sense to you. I want to know if asking you to bid in 2 weeks is reasonable.
Right.
Forgetting that I know you want 30 days, but tell me, is 2 weeks going to be enough, or are you going to think I'm tailoring it to something? Ask very specific questions. Don't be afraid. It's an RFI. Nobody's going to take you anyplace with this. We're really trying to pinpoint. Too often we send these generic RFIs, and then some companies think that they got to write you reams of paper in response.
Yep.
And that takes time and that takes money. And the more we can pinpoint our information that we want, the better our market research results are going to be, the better the feedback we're going to get from industry, and the less work both sides are going to do. Yep. And let's be realistic. We all have enough to do.
Agreed.
So that would be one of my things, that industry has to be honest to the government and say, you just sent me an RFI that's obtuse. So, you can say it nicer than that, okay? Soraya would say it was obtuse, but you could say something nicer like, I'm not clear on what you're asking for.
Sure.
Why? What is the purpose of this RFI? I think we have to ask those questions, because I see industry just putting a lot of time and energy in RFIs, and sometimes I don't feel that we're getting the benefit of what they put into it.
Agreed. So I'm going to bounce off that a little bit, Soraya, from a standpoint of the concept of sticking to your knitting from companies.
Some of the best phrases.
For companies trying to be everything to everybody. And I often, and at least in the past, I have seen this show up in RFIs. Mm-hmm. It's like there isn't a clear nexus to the company's past performance, past experience, past capability, but they see an opportunity, and it's like, oh, we've got to connect these two dots, and that's a very loose connection between past capability, past experience, and this new opportunity. So it looks like, well, let's just go out here and try this, and let's try this, and I do that, I do this, I do that. I think one of the things that businesses, specifically small businesses, that get very niche-y, and that's a word that I don't know if I created that or not, but get very niche-y from a standpoint of understanding what you do, what you bring to the marketplace, and what's the differentiator. Because there's tons of people, we were talking a little bit earlier about if you're a new business coming into the space, or a nascent, at least junior business coming into the space, the last thing you want to do is go into a vertical where it's crowded. We don't need any more admin support, contractors. We got tons of those. And it won't serve you well, because it becomes a race to the bottom. So look for those areas that you stick to your knitting, but look for those areas where the competitive landscape isn't as kind of shark infested waters, so that there's an opportunity to not only be in the space and become mature in the space, but it isn't a race to the bottom on prices, because competition works. Make no mistake. But you can be on the wrong side of a competitive environment where it's just a simple race to the bottom, and then no one survives, and then the government is back in the same position of having few competitors in a marketplace where competition is limited. So I'm a big believer in just being who you are. Finding a differentiator in that space and stick to your knitting. There's tons of opportunities. There's $500 billion worth of spend every year. There's tons of opportunities, but stick to your knitting.
Yeah, I like that word, differentiator, because even in the space, let's say that you want to be an admin, or you want to be in whatever professional supports, or whatever language you want to use, right? But typist or whatever. what makes you better than the rest? What makes you different from the rest? How are you different for me? Because that's the other thing, that it's not just about being different, it's about being different for the agency that you're going to serve.
Yeah.
Right? Think about it. I mean, we are all selfish that way. It's about the agency that I'm serving, right? So when I was CPO, I really could care less if you had a great solution for the Department of Energy. I really didn't care. I would
Right.
go talk to the Department of Energy. I
Right.
wanted to hear what you do for DHS. When you came to see me, I wanted to hear about my components, CBP, ICE, FLETC, et cetera. I wanted to hear what was in it for my department, because that's who I'm focused on. That doesn't mean I don't care about the rest of the government, but you're wasting my time if you're going to give me an energy solution that has no application in my
Yeah.
world, right?
Yeah.
And I agree. I agree with you. Differentiators.
Yeah, I'm a big believer. If we couldn't, back when I was at DHS, I used to say, if we can't paint it DHS blue and stick a DHS eagle on it, it's like, why are we talking? You know, because I'm here, while I appreciate your capability, I am here to source solutions for mission needs inside the department. You know,
Exactly.
so if you've got all these bells and whistles all over here, and yeah, we're doing something for this company over, I mean, this firm over here, or this organization or this department, that's great. How can we put blue on it and slap a DHS eagle on it? That's what matters to me. So,
exactly.
and I think an extension from that is all value isn't necessarily created in dollars and cents.
That's correct.
Okay, that you know, currency is value. Yes, there is value. You know, we talked last week about prices. Sure. So we can always talk about prices, but there are tons of ways to add value. But again, it has to be value for the agency that you are interacting with, and for the firm that you're interacting with. And it's not just, oh, this is great. You know, a new SharePoint site. Wow, great. That's awesome. But we're not using that. You know, that's not value.
And value is subjective.
Yeah.
It's subjective. That's why, you know, when you talk about best value, like in the FAR, you know, I had to throw that in there because, you know, I had to get back to my FAR, right? No, anyway, no, but best value, it's subjective. It is subjective. It's in the eye of the beholder, and it's based on what I need. I define value for me, not you.
Yeah.
And so when you come to me, you got to be trying to put yourself in my shoes, right? And determine what's going to be of value to her. What's of value to her agency? What's of value to that particular component within the agency? And how do I express that and get your attention? I always remember I had a boss who used to say this, and I didn't get it at first because, you know, sometimes I'm a little slow. He would say, "What's your elevator speech?" You're riding up the elevator with the head of the company or the head of the agency, and you want to sell them something. Right? You want him to remember you in a good way, I hope. In a good way. What are you going to say to him in that elevator? Because that elevator ride is only a couple of minutes, if that long. What's your elevator speech? And that's what companies think. What are you going to punch with? How are you going to get my attention and keep it? One of the best meetings I had, I won't name the company. One of the best meetings I had was a company that was selling a product. And I remember the person that was selling it was just as excited as I was when we had the conversation. Because as soon as I saw it, I've been thinking about something like that. Oh, can I see this? Can I see? I was like a little kid in a candy store because the product had a nexus to a problem that I felt needed to be solved. Sure, and as soon as I saw it, I became excited. And he was like, "Oh my God, you sell it better than I do." Because I was like, yeah. And I started going down the list of all the advantages of having this particular product if we could get it to work in the federal space. And the guy was like tickled pink. He went, "Oh my God, you're like the first person I've come to in the government that like got it like that. You were actually selling it probably better than I was." That's the kind of meeting you really want to have. And not every meeting's going to go that way. And not everybody's going to go Soraya and go crazy like a little kid in the candy store. But my point is, you want to get people excited about who you are and what you have to offer and why you're there. I mean, and I got to tell you that when it comes to small businesses and mid-tiers, you know, that grow out of small and even some of the largest, I'm always excited to talk to industry. I really am. I have a deep rooted appreciation for what they're trying to do. I see them as partners and I see them as valued partners, right? And what I want to do is always help them get bang for their buck because they spend money to do business with the government. They really do. And what I've always said about industry, and my percentages could be off because I haven't done any scientific surveys. I believe that 99% of the people that are out there in the various industries that support us are professionals. They want to do a great job. They believe in our government. They want to support the mission. They want to deliver, and they want to deliver excellence. I really believe that. And so what I want to do is make sure they understand how to do that and have the opportunity to do that, because we sometimes are not very good at explaining what we're looking for. Like I said, I use the famous RFI. If I could be queen for a day, every contracting officer would have this massive sentence at the beginning of the RFI. Purpose. The purpose of this RFI is to find out what small businesses are out there,
Right.
or to understand whether or not we have a good problem statement, or to help us write the damn statement of work because we're not good at it. Whatever. I would literally have that. And then I would have a list of 5 questions. These are the 5 questions you need to answer. I don't care if you ever read the statement of work and give me any comments on it. Answer these 5 questions. That to me is the way we should be talking to industry. That is the way we should be acting. Their time is as valuable as ours. And I'll leave you with this final note, because I know you're going to time that's right. I'm kidding. You're not going to tease it. Anyway, and I'll leave you with this note. One of the things that I used to do as head of contracting, I was reminded of this because I was talking to one of my former contractors. One of the things that I did when I was HCA, I started this when I was HCA, when I was CPO, I really tried to enforce it as much as I could, was stop with this issuing a solicitation 2 or 3 days before holidays, especially Christmas or Thanksgiving, and then having the proposals due on the Monday morning or the Friday evening before the weekend. I used to go, why? Why are you doing this? They're going to cancel their holidays. So you sat on that thing for 3 months, 2 more weeks isn't going to kill you.
Absolutely. So sad.
And when people used to come to me and say, proposals are going to be due on Friday at 3, I go, really? Your ass going to be here working all weekend? Read those damn proposals? If you're not, then give it to them. Give them the weekend, have it due on Monday. Whenever, have it due on a day that you're going to do something with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Customer experience.
Customer
experience. Yeah.
Thank you. The experience, but also the respect and appreciation for the fact that they're going to work their butts off. And I used to get furious when people come in, oh, we're going to release this solicitation on December 20th and proposals are due on January 3rd. And they would say with like such pride. I'm like, really? No. Are you going to be here? Are you going to be here to answer all the questions over the holidays? Because I'm going to tell you what, they're going to be working. They're going to cancel people's leave. We don't do that. We don't do that. And I actually had a situation where I actually had to call the undersecretary for management because, I had a program manager like threatening me with like, how dare you? And I said, not going to happen. I don't care. And I called the undersecretary and I said, I'm telling you, we're not releasing this solicitation. And they backed me up. They said, you're right. I said, they're going to ruin people's holidays and we're not going to do anything with it.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. And the thing, and Sarai, here's the thing about it. The canceling of the holiday is bad enough, or affecting the holiday is bad enough, but there is likely a successful offerer that's coming out of this process. You are building the relationship. You are starting the relationship with someone you're going to be in a business relationship for 3, 4, 5 years. And the first thing you did to start the relationship was to nix their holidays. Think about the relationship that is built on that foundation.
Well, and the part that really upsets me is, okay, let's all cancel our holidays, right? In other words, if it's a true bona fide emergency, and we had a few of those during the pandemic, immigration, I mean, I could name the list, hurricanes, disasters. Absolutely. There are times where we just got to do what we got to do, right? Absolutely. But that means we're here too.
Yeah, it's shared.
That means we are here too. And that to me was also the other part of the equation. If this is a real emergency, we're all huddled in here. We are sitting there with phone in hand, waiting for them to call us. Yeah. And we're talking to them constantly because we're all either in it together or we're not. But it was one of my pet peeves. And I think that industry has to be a little bit more honest when they're dealing with the government to say, hey guys, do you understand? Here's what I'm looking for. This is what I need from you. Here's where you're not giving me enough information. I don't get what you're asking me for. I want to be a part of the solution. not a part of the problem.
Yep.
And then I could get on the other side of that, but you told me the time is close because the
Yes,
other
we're
part
at
of
that
that is,
time.
stop with the frivolous protests. I'm sorry. I have to get that one out. I always have to spit that one out.
So we
I-
just created 3 more topics out of this one
You're not
episode.
gonna let me riff off on that protest.
No, we're at that time, but we do want to give our nugget, and we want to be actionable, okay, and deliberate. So nugget for the community in terms of kind of thinking about the future, small business, prepping, posturing for the future. What's your nugget for the community?
It's the one that you heard throughout what I was talking about. Help us help you. You have to help us be as direct and as honest as we can be with you. And that takes your telling us what you need from us. So industry has to be clear. It's one of the things that I think we did at DHS with our reverse industry days. We got a lot of really good feedback from industry on what they look for, right? What kind of information they need, that kind of stuff. I think it's extremely important that you not just react to an RFI, you act on it. You deliberately say, so what is the purpose of this document? What are you seeking? If it's not clear, ask the question. There is nothing wrong with that. And I got it. Some agencies may never answer you, and that's fine. Okay. But there are going to be some that are going to be more conscientious, and they're going to go, it's a really good question. Let me see if I can get you some more info.
Yeah.
So be a part of the solution. That my nugget is act to help us.
Yeah.
Because we are a team, and we don't always have all the resources or all the understanding that you may have, and you can help us better act and interact with you.
Love that. I love that. And actually, my nugget is going to go one step upstream, and it is every contracting officer, contract specialist, program manager, project officer, or core is dealing with a pebble they have in their shoe right now. Something is bothering them. Something is bothering them, okay? Do the homework, lean in, do the homework to find out what is it, that thing that is hobbling them, and then seek to deliver solutions, or at least to start the conversation to introduce a solution to get the pebble out of the shoe. Everyone's got one. You can pick, we're going into the holiday season, and there are individuals.
You're saying the pebble, right? Help remove.
Yeah,
I like that. I like that.
Yeah, it's somebody's got a rock in their shoe. And they're going into the holidays, and there's a small set of people that are going into the holidays, and they can't even enjoy their holidays because they know when the holidays are over, I still got a rock in my shoe. Something is bothering, something in the system, something in the mission is a challenge we haven't overcome yet. Those of us small businesses that are thinking about these things need to be thinking about, how do we identify the pebbles in their shoes and then offer them solutions to take them out.
Very good. I like that. Pebble in the shoe. So I'm going to practice analogies over the next few years. Even in the new year, I can come up with stuff like you. I'm just like not good at those analogies.
You are funny. And with that, Soraya, we're done. Another one in the books. Merry Christmas.
Yes, I was going to say that. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
I want to thank everyone for the jobs that they do. Yeah. I don't think we say it often enough. Thank you are 2 words in the English language that could be used a lot more often. And they need to be directed not only at the folks that work on the federal side and the state and local side and do the job of government, which is a very tough job. Taking care of our citizenry and protecting the freedoms that we have, that's a very tough job to do. But also to the industry, because they are our partners. Industry, academia, a lot of these 501c3 companies out here, a lot of these organizations, they care as much as those of us who worked in federal government. And I thank them. I thank them all for their work. And I wish everyone a very safe and Merry Christmas and happy and prosperous New Year. But I know we'll be talking with them before the New Year.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm sure I gave you another pebble in your shoe for
another episode.
I think we're going to call it pebble in the shoe.
Absolutely. All right. Happy holidays. Be well. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.